Good afternoon, Bermuda. I am joined by Kelly Trott, the Deputy National Disaster Coordinator today. I wanted to have this briefing today because I think it's becoming critically important to reinforce some of the guidelines for large group gatherings and the approval process for such events. Additionally, we have seen a number of events and activities taking place over the past few months, and there has been some concerns raised that individuals at these events are not following the appropriate guidelines. But before I speak to this, I wish to once again take this opportunity to extend condolences to the family of the young man who was killed this weekend. As a mother of a son, I cannot imagine the hurt, the pain, and the grief that this young man's mother must be going through. This is such an unnecessary tragedy, and again, my heart truly goes out to this family during this extremely difficult time. I also take this opportunity to condemn in the strongest possible terms the gun violence which took place in the Pembroke Park area this weekend. I met with the Commissioner of Police earlier today to discuss all of this weekend's violent activities, and I am satisfied that all the necessary resources are being dedicated to bringing the perpetrators to justice. You will also have heard at the police press conference earlier today that they are taking these events extremely seriously, and they're asking for the public's support in their investigative efforts. As the Minister of National Security and as a mother, I am also making a plea to the community to please come together to help stamp out these acts of violence. This year, sadly, we have recorded 6 murders, 2 by firearms, and this weekend's fatal stabbing is the 4th stabbing murder this year. We cannot continue on this way, Bermuda. As I said in my message over the weekend, we can do better, we must do better. If anyone has any information about the weekend stabbing fatality and the firearms incident, no matter how insignificant you think it is, please share what you know with the police by calling 295-0011 or dialing 211. You can also call the anonymous Crime Stoppers hotline at 800-8477. I now wish to turn my attention to the matter of large group gatherings. Bermuda, simply put, the COVID-19 continues to be with and among us, and I'm urging residents not to become complacent. As a reminder, we all have a responsibility to do what we can to mitigate and limit the spread of the virus and comply with the policies in place. Regarding large gatherings, it should be noted that the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Regulations Number 2, 2020 prohibits any persons from assembling in a group of more than 75 persons for any reason in a public or private place. And if you're planning to have an event where more than 75 people will assemble, you must apply to the Ministry of National Security, the Minister, for an exemption. The regulations also require all persons to take all reasonable precautions to maintain appropriately physical distancing at all times in any public or private space. Here are some specific reminders of the application and approval process which are in place. All applications should be submitted by email to the Ministry of National Security at emogroup@gov.bm. I'll just say that again, emogroup@gov.bm. The application is reviewed against the following guidelines: venue dimensions, the World Health/CDC guidelines, mass gathering guidelines, which are found at the government website and in this document, input from the Department of Health, the applicant's plan to address minimizing COVID-19 spread. This includes the type of event and having the required security at the event, and the status of the COVID-19 in community, which is currently at a low rate. Lastly, applicants should expect an approval by 10 business days. The Ministry of National Security is willing to work with any individual or entity who wishes to hold a gathering of more than 75 people. However, there must be a degree of responsibility on the part of the host or host organization. Again, Bermuda, we have managed this pandemic extremely well, thanks in large part to the health guidance and the recommendations put in place. And we have done well to enforce these guidelines and policies. We are about to enter the cooler months, and leading health experts and organizations are predicting a surge in those contracting COVID-19. We are already seeing this play out in the UK, Europe, and the US. So we're asking people to please continue to follow health guidelines that are in place to protect you and your families. This includes wearing a mask, hand sanitizing, and maintaining the appropriate physical distancing. And finally, if you are in attendance at any establishment or location around the island and see any breaches of the COVID-19 regulations by persons or businesses, please do not hesitate to call 211 to report the violations. Thank you.
Have any questions at all from members of the media? Sarah Lagan from the Royal Gazette.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a question with regards to large gatherings. Have you experienced many other occasions where there have been violations in terms of large gatherings in Bermuda? Have you come across many violations in terms of the large gatherings?
We haven't come across many, Sarah. For the most part, the organizations and the applicants have tried very much to do their part, and we have been pleased with that. But there's always some room for improvement, and so my call today is to reiterate what the rules are around large gathering approvals, and the fact that we expect that there's some sort of personal responsibility as well in ensuring that the terms and conditions are followed.
Sure. And you said you were satisfied with the resources that the BPS had been dedicating to address the incidents over the weekend. Has there been an increase in resources? Could you explain the change in resource allocation in terms of what the BPS is doing?
I don't think that there's been a change in resources, but they have had to allocate some officers from maybe various areas to put in different positions to adequately ensure that we have the resources to investigate and to also go into neighborhoods and assist with any questions or concerns. And so I did meet with the BPS today, and I am satisfied with the allocation of the resources.
Mm-hmm. Is there any update on the conditions of any of the victims of the crime?
No, I don't have any at this time.
Okay, thank you.
But you called this press conference, and you talked about, your concerns about these groups. So I'm just wondering, there must have been something specific that made you do that. Was there a specific case where there was a large group of people that made you concerned enough to call this press conference?
Mm-hmm. There weren't any concern around violations or anything like that, but we have mass gathering approval, and these guidelines were not in place some time ago. We now have them in place. They can be found on the government website, and we are encouraging persons to have a read of the guidelines. We'll let you know where they are, and that we are expecting that people will follow the terms and conditions set out in the large gathering approval.
You just thought not enough people knew.
Beg your pardon?
You just thought not enough people knew.
Yeah, well, we think the best way to ensure that people are informed is to keep them aware and to give the information to them as well.
Minister, if I can just add to, I think it was important to come and to just advise people of the guidelines, because the application numbers have steadily been increasing. So the guidelines give groundwork so that people know before applying what is required. So we've just tried to formalize the process.
Has the government been satisfied with all of the necessary protocols to stop the importation of cases? Because, you know, we've noticed like 2 and 3 cases. I think earlier on there was like 0 cases.
Mhm.
Now we keep seeing, you know, a few more cases come in. You think we're pretty well, do you think there's other things that could be done to protect us from more imported cases?
I believe with the increase in flights, in the beginning we had less flights. With the increase in flights, we expected the numbers to increase because the volumes are increasing. The protocols are in place to adequately identify persons that are arriving, and we have the health protocols in place. So I think we're doing an excellent job.
And about this violence, this must have been one of the bloodiest weekends, I think, that Bermuda could remember for a long time. So I'm just wondering, is there any more that we could do? I mean, why? Why is this happening?
Well, Mr. Minus, I believe, if we had that answer, we would definitely be there at this time. And you're asking if there's any more that we can do. Yes, that's actually what we're saying, that if we know something, say something. We are asking our communities to be more unified. We're asking for many things at this time. So if you're saying that, you know, what more can be done, well, we're doing more right now in terms of information, and then as a government, we look to do more in terms of mediation. We have a gang violence coordinator. That person is engaged, and right now we believe it's a lot about engagement and just kind of getting into our communities and looking for unity and harmony.
Is the government considering any other initiatives?
We have a redemption prom program, which was started 2.5 years ago, and we're looking to have the new cohort of redemption farms starting in the next 4 weeks. We have the GREAT program that's in our schools, and that program is designed to eradicate gang behavior at an early age. So we do have some programs in place, yes.
And does the government feel that the punishment that exists, the legislation that punishes offenders, is strong enough as a deterrent for offenders in these sorts of crimes?
That's not a conversation that I've had at this time, so I refrain from. I cannot give you an answer on that.
Would you like to see more?
I think that it should match, I guess. You know, it's a conversation that we can have. If you ask me what I'd like to see, I think that's a conversation that we can have as a government. It's not a decision for me to make solely on my end.
Worth having, though?
Probably is worth having, yes.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much for your questions. David Fox from the Bermuda Broadcasting Company. If there aren't any other media queries, that concludes today's press briefing. Thank you, members of the media, for your attention today.